We can hear you. Good morning, everyone. We are getting ready to get started. Excited to have you all join us today for this awesome event. So, one second here, I'm going to get our video panel showing and all of that good stuff. And let's get started in today's conversation. First of all, on behalf of the College of Business here at Auburn University at Montgomery, I want to welcome you all and thank you all for taking this time this morning to join us on behalf of the College of Business and Dr. Ross Dickens, the Dean of the College of Business. Once again, I just want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Special thank you for Otaga County Technology Center and the awesome students and Mrs. Johnson, who's joining us from there. Also, special thanks to Sidney Lanier High School and Mr. Tellis and you all for joining us. I also want to thank Booker T. Washington Magnet High School here in Montgomery, Alabama for you and Dr. Starts and you all just having the time this morning to join us. Some other awesome groups that you all have the pleasure of joining in with today is the AUM Entrepreneurship Club that is locked in this morning as well, along with New Venture Creation course and also students from the AUM Buyer Behavior course. Awesome. So great company this morning and great conversations that each of us will have the opportunity to engage in. Just some general housekeeping that we want to take care of as we're getting ready to get started here. Just want to encourage everyone to engage, right? We want you to feel confident in asking your questions in the chat. I want to just talk a little bit about how we're going to use the chat today along with the Q&A. If you actually look on your panel, you'll see two different options down there, one that says chat. The chat feature will be a great opportunity if you just have a private question that you want to ask directly to the panelists. I know this Zoom probably looks a little bit different from what you're used to, largely because we're using it in the webinar format as opposed to the meeting format that many of you all may be more accustomed to because of virtual learning and all of that good stuff, right? So I want you to feel confident in knowing that the way that the chat is set up is for you to be able to send some questions that you want to ask specifically to the panel. However, if you have some questions that you want to ask, but you feel that will be beneficial to everyone in the discussion, feel free to use Q&A and that will publish your question to everyone and allow us to answer that question via the Q&A box as well if it's something you don't feel that you possibly need a verbal answer to as well. All right. Because of today's format, everyone has been muted and your cameras are disabled. Just because, you know, we want to make sure that this is an engaging experience for everyone, but also that we don't have any unplanned or unintended disruptions, right? So if you have any questions or anything that you want to ask us specifically, verbally, feel free in the participants panel. You will see where you have the ability to raise your hand. We're monitoring the panel, and anytime that you have a hand raised, we will turn the floor over for the opportunity for you all to ask the necessary questions that you want to ask. All right. So let's get started. As we're getting started here, we've taken care of those housekeeping. Basically, today we're just excited to have you join us for a series of webinars that we're actually doing here in the College of Business called the College of Business Talks, right? This series of webinars will actually be posted on our website for you to be able to have access to and share with your friends, your colleagues, and whomever else you feel would be interested in actually viewing the content and information that's shared today. Today's series, we're actually talking about Know Your Value. It's a focus on entrepreneurship. And basically, we're answering the question is, first of all, what is value, right? And before we actually get into what the agenda is, there's a question that a lot of times entrepreneurs find themselves asking themselves, like, who are we? Who are we as entrepreneurs? What is our value proposition? Things of that nature. That's generally what we're talking about today, but I'm going to use this slide and this opportunity to introduce to you all first myself and also our panelists that are actually joining us today. So starting with myself, my name is Charles Jackson. I have the pleasure of being your moderator for today's conversation. I'm dad to Charlie and Grace. I'm Mr. Everything to my wife, Jessica. I'm an Air Force veteran, senior lecturer in marketing and entrepreneurship here at AUM. I'm a mentor and a mentee. That's very important in entrepreneurship, right? It's important that we understand the value of being mentored and also the value of paying it forward and being a mentor. I'm the director of graduate programs here at AUM College of Business as well, and I am the hand that feeds my dogs. Is what that actually is. Hugo and Valentine, right? They love me dearly for that. Why do I say all of that? Because as an entrepreneur, it's important to understand who you are in every facet of your life, because it will play a role in your entrepreneurial journey, right? And we'll talk about that a good bit here as well. But now I want to take the opportunity and the pleasure to introduce to you our panelists that are actually joining us today. First, we have Mr. Gary Soriano. Gary is an AUM alumnus. He is a Chick-fil-A owner and operator of the Chick-fil-A in East Chase, and also the one in the RSA Tower downtown Montgomery. More importantly, he is a servant and he is a friend. He is a friend to me. He is a friend to AUM, and he's a friend to our community with all of the philanthropy and the work that he do in the community that oftentimes go unheard. All right. And I also want to take the advantage to allow you all to watch this video.
When I was here at AUM, I had a strong desire to become a Chick-fil-A franchisee. I knew it in my junior year, and it was a matter of applying myself not only in the classroom, but also doing the things that I knew I needed to do to get my name out there. I am Gary Soriano. I am an AUM alum, and I am an AUM entrepreneur.
Good deal, good deal. One thing I'll say also about Mr. Soriano, Gary graduated here from AUM in, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, 1982, correct?
Sorry, I needed to unmute myself. Sorry about that. Yes, that's correct, 82.
1982. And Gary, if I'm not mistaken, you have been, even prior to that, as we said in the video, you were a student here at AUM. At that time, you actually felt in your heart, and you're working at Chick-fil-A, and you felt in your heart, this is what you wanted to do, right?
That's so true. Yeah, I really liked what the company stood for. I enjoyed the work. I liked the fast pace of the work. I liked how I have a natural bent toward problem solving, and every day brought its own challenges. And I really found that a lot of my interests were fueled, and a lot of my passions were I was able to put to work in that job. I'd also had a job as an accounting clerk while I was in college in more of an office setting, and the contrast between the two jobs really steered me toward a career with Chick-fil-A. I just really preferred the on my feet, moving, fast-paced environment that Chick-fil-A provided me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Gary, not only from your time, so after your transition from working as an employee for Chick-fil-A, what year was it that you actually began to be a franchisee and operator?
Well, I graduated in '82, took a job with Pizza Hut as a manager in a restaurant. And really, that was one of those jobs where I was working 80 hours a week and had every problem in the world in that restaurant that they gave me, which was a real gift. You think about problems and having to work through problems as being something that you would not want. But at that age and at that point in my career, I needed that to. It was almost like going to college and being instructed in the ways of running a restaurant, as I kind of developed my leadership style and developed a passion for the business to run properly, for the customers to be to get a good product and to really enjoy their visit with us. So it was, I would say that was instrumental for me. And I only had that restaurant for about a year and a half before I got my first franchise. So I graduated in the spring of '82, started with Pizza Hut soon afterwards, And then in the fall of '83, I opened my own Chick-fil-A restaurant in Auburn, Alabama.
You know, Gary, with that being said, I probably think you're the king of chicken in the region. You probably have been selling chicken longer than anyone that I know in the region. So once again, just excited to have you joining us today, and looking forward to the conversations that we're getting ready to have. Awesome.
Thank you, Charles. It's certainly my pleasure to be here and to share with these young people.
As a marketer, I like how you slid in. It's certainly your pleasure. It's my pleasure. That's awesome right there. That's awesome. All right. So also we want to take the opportunity to introduce you to our next panelist, also Mr. Boyd Stevens. Boyd was recognized by Montgomery Advertiser and the city of Montgomery as a Community Hero of the Year for 2019. Boyd is an entrepreneur. He is a champion for the entrepreneurs also, having a direct hand in helping launch businesses across the region. Once again, Mr. Stevens is also a servant and friend, basically yielding himself to serve those around him and our community. And I ask that you all also share in a moment of watching this video as well.
Historically, I've always had challenges with awards. He really cares about this community. You see that on the technology front, the business front, the entrepreneurial classes, but he's volunteering his time for various ministries, working with incarcerated, and it's just so great to see a person who succeeds in business and also in life.
So I'm a developer. I write code all day. We manage networks all day.
I reached out to Mr. Stevens because I needed his assistance.
Well, when you're in IT, sometimes you have to present to people. And a lot of that presentation has to be in writing.
He's done such a large amount of community building before Tech MGM even came aboard. Honestly, he helped to birth that organization.
It's not about just one individual. It's about a team and collaborating and bringing everybody together for the good of everybody.
So you kind of have to pick and choose. What do I like doing?
Boyd has sort of very modestly seeded lots of projects and activity that have taken place across Montgomery.
It's more blessed to give than receive. And I've experimented with that to the extreme.
A lot of people gravitate toward it, and they listen to the things that he speak about because he's genuinely interested. He listens well.
It's about the people who poured into you. It's about the people who have taken the time to give you that encouraging word when you felt superly frustrated. The people who offered some resources that maybe otherwise you would never have had access to. And the timing of it all, right? The orchestration of it all.
Boyd is the ultimate mentor.
I rapidly got to the point where I just seek him out and say, hey, what do you think of this? How about that? I'm trying to find an industry that does the following, and he could provide those kind of contexts.
What he's done with city leadership, with respect to the open data portal, but then also using true facts and data analytics to help grow Montgomery.
The first time I heard Boyd Stevens' name was through the book Citizenville. Boyd had shared it with Mayor Todd Strange, and it was a bit of a blueprint to what the city of Montgomery could become.
If you're ever offered the opportunity to be bitten by the giving bug and really understanding how that works, not only is it infectious, but it changes your life. It changes the way you look at even failure. You start realizing, oh, this is a groovy little spot, because if I hadn't failed, I wouldn't have known about this, that, and the other. And you're constantly looking on the landscape with who can I bring along with me? And it is about the we, the us, and the our. I started programming when I was 15 years old. I'd never seen a computer. You had brought that up, the award to me, say 20 years ago. I would have told you thank you, but I'm good. But what I've come to realize that the awards aren't really about the award recipient. There's a little bit of that there, but as an older colleague of mine has told me, you're not in this world by yourself. Nobody's really an island.
We've come a long way with Boyd at the helm, even though he's very modest and probably doesn't always want you to know that he's behind some of it.
My wife told me sometimes you just need to hush up and say thank you and be appreciative.
Very humble and yet very deserving. Mr. Stevens is really engaged in the community when it comes to hosting business startup workshops. There are also very few things that are substantial in this community that evolves around entrepreneurship and technology that hasn't had Mr. Stevens' influence or fingerprints on. He is definitely an unsung hero. And boy, we thank you for taking this time this morning for joining us and spending this time imparting wisdom for our students and participants on this panel. So thank you so much for the contributions that you made and that you are making. Very appreciative.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. You mentioned a few names I'm somewhat familiar with, some of the high schools, some of the other organizations. So it's good to be around family folk.
Awesome. And also, I just want to share, we have also one other panelist, another name that you'll actually see listed as a panelist, Mr. Olumuyiwa Ladabomoye. He is one of our graduate students here in the Master's of Business Administration program. He will be serving as a facilitator, kind of helping monitor the chat and things of that nature. If you have any questions, feel free to send them directly to him or just send them in the chat specifically. Mr. Oladabomoye is a native of Auburn, Alabama. He graduated from Auburn University with a degree in electrical engineering and has served across industries in that role prior to deciding to come back to get his MBA. So thank you, Muyiwa, for actually joining us today. Is there anything you would like to share?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the discussion. Excited for the students to see, entrepreneurship up close and personal and be able to ask a couple of questions. It's good when you can get feedback from entrepreneurs like the guys on the panel. It really helps you out in your career. So, and I'm here to help in the chat. So let me know if you got any questions.
Yep. And I may add this also, although Muyiwa has worked for a while, since graduation, has worked for Honda in North Alabama there as an engineer. He also has started his own logistics business that does delivery services and transportation services across the region also. So he himself is also an entrepreneur. So just wanted to share that as well. So what are we talking about today? All right. First of all, we're going to take the opportunity and we're going to be defining entrepreneurship. We will be discussing why entrepreneurship is important. And we're going to be identifying characteristics of an entrepreneur, exploring myths about entrepreneurship, understanding value and value proposition. This is primarily what we're going to be talking about today. Awesome. This is what I want you to do. All right. I need you to pull out your cell phones and I need you to text the number. You're going to text the number 22333. And where you're going to text to that number is AUM Business 873. AUM Business 873. And you're going to text it to the number 22333. All right. It's going to be very important for you all to actually participate in this piece, as it's going to allow us to digitally engage and participate on some surveys and some different things that allow us to kind of have some different kind of connections. All right. So definitely want you all to go ahead and do that. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. Again, texting AUM Business 873 to the phone number 22333. Awesome. And once you've done that, if you could simply raise your hand, that will be awesome. If you could raise your hand, if you can go to the list of, if you double click on participants, and you will be able to see your name. You should be able to raise, or you should be able to raise your hand. You should see the little raise your hand symbol there. So once you have pulled out your phone and text the number 22333 and text the words AU1 Business 873 to that, please raise your hand for me in the panel. All right, I'm starting to see hands go up. That is awesome. All right, 6 out of 20. I'm getting there. We are getting there. We are getting there. All right. Few more minutes, few more seconds, not a few more minutes. I have 9 out of 20 people who are participating with me right now. Once again, I just would like for you to text the number 22333 and or text AU1 Business 873 to that number, if you will. All right. Now that you all have actually subscribed to this digital way in which we'll be connecting, what I want you to do now, I want you to, one word that defines entrepreneurship, text that. Now that you've opened your connection with us, I want you to start texting one word that comes to mind that defines entrepreneurship. One word. One word. You go into that same number that you just text AUM. There you go. Risk taking. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Visionary. Change. Keep going here. I'll give you all a few more seconds. And feel free. You can text more than once. Self-employer. Okay. Innovative. Visionary. I like it. I like it. Money. You know, leader. Okay. Awesome. Change. Awesome. Awesome. Give you all a few more seconds there. Passion. Adulting. Adulting. We'll talk about that a little bit. You know, entrepreneurship doesn't have to be an adult game. You know, it doesn't have to be an adult game, but we'll talk about that. Passion. I love that word. I love that word. Passion. Taking risk. I see. Self-improvement. Self-employer.
I see innovative in there.
I see innovative in there as well. Good deal. Good deal. Good deal. Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. These are, you can keep on responding. These are definitely words and that we often think of when we think about entrepreneurship and how do we define it, right? Innovative. So what does that word mean? What does that word mean? In the chat, you know, feel free to drop it in the chat. What do you think innovative really means? What does that word really mean? Innovative. You know, any of my panelists want to chime in also? See a few people responding in the chat. Someone says having new and good ideas, right? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, in some cases, it's finding a way where there doesn't seem to be a way.
Okay. Finding a way when there doesn't seem to be a way. Good deal. Good deal. Awesome. 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 You know, I saw the word, and people still chiming in. I saw the word problem solver, right? Mm-hmm. Problem solver. And we're going to dive into that even a bit more in a few minutes here as we talk about value and value proposition. But definitely innovators are definitely problem solvers. All right. Let's move on to the next slide and like a trend setting. I like that one as well. Creative. I like that one as well. I'm starting to see some that is sticking out to me. Discipline, humility, that are sticking out to me that I didn't see before. Definitely discipline is a very huge part of entrepreneurship. All right. We'll talk about that too.
I think these students are ready to teach the class.
Yeah, they're ready to teach the class. Absolutely. 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 All right. While you're still there, I want you all to start answering this question for me, right? You don't have to log into there we go, hardworking. Why do people want to become entrepreneurs? Hardworking. What else do we have? Why do people want to become entrepreneurs? That's that answer also. To be their own boss, okay? Own boss. I'm definitely going to talk about that one a little bit. All right. I have some people commenting in the chat as well, setting a new trend or standard, a person who has a solution to a problem. All right. I see some of my students responding too, in the chat that you're cheating. You gotten the answers to these before in class. So good deal. I love the engagement that we actually have going on here, and good deal. Good deal. Good deal. Good deal. All right. Give you all a few more seconds to respond to that as well. I have to just looking at it over here on this screen as well. Yep. Okay. Awesome. 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 So let's see what we have here. But to become successful and wealthy, make dreams come true is what someone said. What else we got out of the 11 responses? We have hard working. That was the first one. To be my own boss. Flexibility with schedule is what someone else said. So that they can make a difference and achieve their own personal goals. Making dreams come true is also what we have. To become successful and wealthy, earn lots of money, make and break the standards. I love that one. Make and break the standards. I love that one. Awesome. Own a company and flexibility. We saw that one as well. Okay. We're going to let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about it. All right. So a lot of people want to become entrepreneurs. Heard so many different answers, and I'm not going to say wrong answers, but this is something we want to think differently about when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? A lot of people say to be their own boss. Some people have said to get rich quick and to have stability, right? Let me tell you, entrepreneurship is a flexibility game, not a stability game. At the end of the day, when it comes to stability, long term, you can work towards stability. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely, you can, right? But then I want to tackle this first one very quickly here, to be your own boss, right? Myself, when I started my first business, right? I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started a couple different businesses, but when I started my first business, it was to do web development and app development and brand management, designing billboards, print advertising, all of that good stuff, right? And at the time, I was working at Auburn University main campus doing marketing for the College of Human Sciences. And personally, I found myself in a space where I was wanting to do my own thing. I felt that Auburn University was keeping me contained. I couldn't be as creative, and I wanted to be my own boss. So I said, I'm going to start my own business. I can design how I want to design and all of that good stuff. And I learned very quickly that I was absolutely wrong. What happened was I went from having one boss at Auburn University to now every client was a boss. I had multiple bosses. It wasn't about me serving my self-interest in the things that I wanted to do. It was about me adding the value that my clients were seeking. And a lot of times that may have been a little bit different from my own opinions, right? So I actually found myself having multiple bosses. And I can guarantee you, our panelists can share with you also that they have multiple bosses, right? Every customer that comes into Chick-fil-A is a boss, right? And we can have a chance to talk about that a bit more. But some of the right answers is to make a difference, to solve problems, to have flexibility, to create opportunities, not just for yourself, but for other people around you and in your community. Listen, I had a student, my very first semester teaching here at AUM in 2014. I had a student that told me, Mr. Jackson, I want to start a business. Awesome. Well, what kind of business do you want to start? And he had like 5 or 6 different options. And they were all in different places. And what I realized that none of them were tied to any specific passion that he actually had, right? Or any specific abilities that he had either, or any capacity that he had. It was all about, he said, Mr. Jackson, to be honest with you, I just want to make a lot of money and make a lot of money quick. Okay, we can start with that. But I asked him the question, I said, how many people do you know got rich trying to get rich, right? And he really didn't know what I meant by that, but I had to break it down to him. I said, listen, you have to understand real opportunity isn't in the places that you're seeking right now. Real opportunity is in solving problems, filling voids. At the end of the day, you know, a lot of things didn't make sense in the beginning for Bill Gates or for Mark Zuckerberg or Bezos or any of these names. None of it made sense in the eyes of a lot of people because they didn't see the quick path to riches and the decisions and the things that they were doing, right? Right. So I want us to begin to reshape our thoughts. Now, making money is important. That sustainability and profit is very important, but we'll talk about that as well. All right. So, all right. I want to play this game with you on your cell phones again, guys. Name someone who have found business success solving a problem that you know. Someone who has found business success solving a problem. This could be someone famous. It doesn't have to be anyone famous, but someone you know who has found business success solving a problem. Charles Jackson. Okay, I appreciate that. Uber, definitely. LeBron James, absolutely. LeBron James refuses to be known just as a guy that can dribble a ball. Absolutely. Anyone else? Someone in the chat said FedEx. Okay, awesome. Okay, not a problem. Let's move on to the next slide then. Okay, characteristics of an entrepreneur. Growth oriented, right? Results driven, self-motivated, incredibly persistent. That is very important. Incredibly persistent. All right. Sees opportunities where others don't, right? Myths about entrepreneurship. It takes a lot of money to start a business. It takes a great idea, right? Sometimes it actually takes reworking ideas that have already been out here for a while, right? The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. You know, a lot of people feel like, hey, I have to drop everything I have into this startup or whatever, and the reward is going to be greater. Actually, investors are looking at ways for you to mitigate the risk, right? And we'll talk about that, right? A business plan is required to start a business. Now, you know, business plans are important, right? They're important, right? And I'll let Mr. Stevens talk to this a little bit later also. Business plans are important, right? But I want to quote this philosopher, right? There's a philosopher I want to quote, right? And that is Mr. Mike Tyson, right? Now, this philosopher once says that everyone has a plan until when you get punched in the mouth. Everyone has a plan when you get punched in the mouth. What happens a lot of time in entrepreneurship, we spend a lot of time working a plan, building a plan on a product or a service that we don't even truly understand if the market even wants. We haven't even gotten to the market yet, and we built this great plan that probably adds very little value to your business until you actually understand whether you have something good or not. Now, a plan is important. Don't get me wrong. Having some benchmarks is important because the good thing is when I get hit in the mouth, I might forget my plan, but once I get my bearings again and I could get some clarity, I at least have another starting point I could go back to make adjustments, okay? So don't get me wrong saying that you don't need a plan, but you don't need a plan to get started, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit. Awesome. So why are we here? This is what the question we're going to be answering as entrepreneurs, right? A lot of times entrepreneurs even find themselves frustrated at times in the things that they're trying to do. And they ask themselves, they may wake up and say, well, what am I doing, right? Am I actually solving a problem or actually doing the things in which I feel adds value to myself and to my community and to those whom I serve? So now we want to just engage in a discussion, right, with our panelists, right? And as we're engaging in this discussion, this first question I want to ask, I have some questions here that we're getting ready to ask. Some of them are primarily directed to one panelist versus the other, but I do care for both of them to chime in if they would like to. On this first question, though, I primarily want to speak to Mr. Stevens, right? It is, what is your definition of value, and explain how it impacts the way you think as an entrepreneur? Your definition of value, and explain how it impacts the way you think as an entrepreneur.
I would think that value would be what resource are you offering? What assistance or help are you bringing to the table? I would also add value is somewhat like beauty. The beholder defines it. So what I may see as something of worth, someone else may not regard it as being of any worth or value at all. So value is one of those, I think, a very subjective word. It isn't definitive in many ways. And I think that's directly related to entrepreneurship. So what we find training entrepreneurs, mentoring entrepreneurs, they oftentimes think that their product or service has worth, and they're rushing headlong into offer it to the world. And that's when your Mike Tyson quote comes in. They put something out into the ether or into the ecosystem or into the capitalistic marketplace, and they feel like, hey, this is the greatest thing since bread began to be sliced. And then they get punched in the mouth. And one of two things normally happens. Well, I'd say one of three. The entrepreneur either becomes very disappointed, or they start exhibiting characteristics of a cousin of disappointment. They start whining about how that just wasn't right, it wasn't fair, and I oftentimes say those three expressions that no one in capitalism really cares about: wasn't right, wasn't fair, and what they deserve. Or they look at the fact that their product or service wasn't well received, and they ask the question why. And what I love about entrepreneurship, especially in the space of value, if you allow it, it can really help humble you up as to the concept of worth. And I mean that in two ways. One, you begin to appreciate the concept of worth that others bring to the table. And then if you allow it, it really helps you internalize what you think about yourself. And you begin to understand that even the worth and the asset that you may be bringing to the world, it's not about you. It's about how much are you affecting other people and other environments, other systems. And it's a wonderful experience. I even ministerially, I think business is much more effective oftentimes than anything that can be done from behind a pulpit. It's just, business is a beast, man. It's really a unique opportunity that people have in the world.
Absolutely. And this next question, I really, well, even when you speak of the terms of from a ministerial perspective, right? Understanding value is increased from the point of how we serve others, right?
Exactly.
Through our businesses, through our products, through our customer service. It's about how we serve others. And that's a good segue into our next question that I want to ask. You know, and Gary, feel free to chime in also if you like to the question about value and how it drives you. But I also want to ask you, how do you add value to your product, service, team, and self? And would love for you to be able to respond to that.
Well, if you think about value as a simple mathematical formula, where value equals what you pay divided by what you get. In other words, when you're offering a product or a service to the general population, and you charge too high of a price for what you're providing, you're not going to sell a whole lot of that. And if you're charging a lower price or too low of a price for what you're providing, chances are you're not going to realize any profit for that. So it's sometimes finding that sweet spot where your product that you're putting out there on the market has the proper pricing, but also the proper benefit to the customers that you're seeking. And and I think the companies that do that the best are the ones that are providing a very high quality product at a fair price, and they tend to get a lot of market share that way. And some companies provide a cheaper product at a cheaper price, and that still stays within the formula because there is a market out there for a cheap product at a cheap price, and they're providing value by doing that. But and then there are other companies, you can think of a whole lot of them, that are providing a lot of quality for a very high price, and there's a market out there for that as well. So I think as you think about value out there in the marketplace, and you can keep those things in perspective. But how do you add value to your product and service? I think it's a matter of finding out what people want, much like what Mr. Stevens was saying a moment ago. If you can tap into the market, figure out what it is that people want, and provide that at a fair price, you're adding value to your product. Where people get tripped up is that they don't ever figure out what it is that customers want. They're pretty much wrapped up in what their idea is or what it is that they think they want to provide. And the more that they can focus in on what is it that my customers want, when you figure that out and you're able to deliver on that, and you're consistent in delivering that promise to people, then you find that you're on your way.
Yep.
In terms of value, you also have consider yourself there is value in your product. There's also value in what you provide to your employees. We call that a value proposition, and you have to make sure that you're providing. If you want a high quality staff, and you want that balance between a good product, but also a good experience for the customer, you have to make sure that you've got a well-trained, high-performing team. And so as a businessman, you want to think about how can I deliver high value to the people on my team. And then in terms of self, I mean, that's just a matter of continually developing yourself. And as you continue to develop yourself, reading books, trying new challenges, not being afraid, not having the courage. I mean, I think one of the biggest things an entrepreneur has to have is courage. The courage to try new things, the courage to challenge the status quo. There was one of the comments, and I can't remember exactly how they worded it, that you said you really liked on the first question that you asked the students. He mentioned breaking down barriers or breaking down rules, and that's one thing that entrepreneurs do. They find new ways. They challenge the status quo, but they have to challenge the status quo in a way that the market will respond to. You don't just challenge things just to challenge things. You challenge things because you have a better idea, and you're not willing to just settle for what's always been done in the past. I think that whole developing self is where it starts. It starts with what you kids or I call you kids because you're a whole lot younger than me, and I was in your seat. It doesn't feel like that long ago, but it certainly was. But it starts with what you're doing now. It starts with learning. While you've got a free education, take advantage of that. Study hard, ask questions, get engaged in your own development, and then continue to pursue that as you move on. And you can self-educate by getting your hands on books and reading. People have done, you think about somebody who writes a book, how much work they put into studying and crafting and trying to exchange their ideas and putting their ideas out there in the marketplace. I've always believed that I'll continue to grow and add value to my people if I continue to grow and add value to myself. And so that's a challenge that I would send out there is take your education seriously, self-educate, but also take advantage of the mentors, the teachers, the classes that you're a part of, because you're going to increase your chances of getting where you want to go by taking your education seriously.
Absolutely, absolutely. And education comes in so many different forms. I know you talked about just reading and diving into content, things of that nature. One of the key pieces I picked on what you said also, Gary, was understanding what matters to the people, what people truly want, right? My kids love Chick-fil-A, right? And their parents love Chick-fil-A, all right? And I have people say, what makes you want to pay for a $6 chicken sandwich, right? But what is it that people want? Do people want a chicken sandwich? I mean, the chicken sandwich, don't get me wrong, Gary, the chicken sandwich is pretty good. It's pretty good. I like the chicken sandwich. But what people are paying for is the attitude of the employees there feeling as if they want to serve you, right? That they're happy to be there. The friendly service, the quick service, because every time you go to a Chick-fil-A, the line is going to be wrapped around the building, maybe 2-3 times, right? But what we know consistently is that line will still move faster than the average shorter line at another place, right? So it's just truly understanding what customers are wanting and what they're willing to pay for. So you talked about the product. Your product is so much bigger than a chicken sandwich, right? It is all of the features and the benefits that you actually add to that chicken sandwich to meet the whole need of the person consuming the sandwich, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, people say, why, what's so great about putting a piece of chicken between 2 pieces of bread? And that's true. And that's not, that's not where it stops, though. It's certainly, you have to build your business from yourself outward. You start with yourself. You get a good set of core values. You decide who it is that you are. You make sure that your heart is in the right place, and then you develop a team. And you have to have that team has to be engaged. They have to flourish under your leadership. They have to understand why are we in business, and they have to buy into that. And then from that, you end up providing the kind of service and product that a customer wants. And Zig Ziglar, one of my favorite speakers of all time, he often said that you'll get everything in life that you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And that puts the focus not on you, not on what you want. It's a natural, getting what you want is a natural byproduct of your desire and your focus and your passion about helping other people get what they want. And I think that lines up
Mr. Jackson,
well with what Mr. Stevens was saying earlier. And Boyd, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
So the only thing I would add is when you're talking about value and you're talking about entrepreneurship, I think where the focus should heavily be around is perceived value. Because if the entrepreneur doesn't understand that it's the perceived value of the customer, then the customer will have you jumping through hoops that you just don't need to be jumping through, right? Because at the end of the day, there's an adage in business that I totally disagree with, and that is the customer is always right. That is not true. What the customer is always is the customer. They want what they want when they want it. And as an entrepreneur, you've got to understand that. So you got to understand that the concept of value is perceived, and it works in some really interesting ways. The one scenario we did not paint is when you have a high quality product and you're selling it at bottom base prices, and the product or service could be superly legit, but when people look at it, they'll say, "Why in the world is this so inexpensive or so cheap?" And in their mind, they said there must be a gotcha somewhere, and they won't buy it. I can't tell you the number of instances where people couldn't sell a product or service. They increased the price, and they couldn't manufacture enough of them because it was the perceived value of the customer. So always keep in mind perceived value, especially when you're trying to question who you are. Because sometimes customers will make you question, do I know what in the heck I'm doing? And sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do. And sometimes that disconnect is the customer or the potential customer just doesn't, their perceptions about what you're trying to accomplish is not there. So perceived values is very crucial, understanding that nuance.
That's so true. And I'll add to that, if you've ever wondered why you don't ever get a 50-cent off coupon for Chick-fil-A in your mailbox, and we're not walking around and trying to discount our product, is because of that very thing. We feel like our product is worth the price that we're charging for it, and the minute we put a 50-cent off coupon out there, we're devaluing our product. We're telling customers that this product is not worth what we're willing to, what our price point is. And that's just part of our marketing strategy. I mean, not everybody, that doesn't work for everybody, but for us, we would rather increase value by increasing the service and increasing what a customer gets rather than discounting what they have to pay for it. That's just part of what our strategy is.
Absolutely. And one of the students just says that you're betting that your product is basically worth the money. Exactly. And you're betting on yourself. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's ask this question here. Is it possible to find value in places that others ignore?
I think that's the key. One of the major keys to entrepreneurship is finding problems that need solving and being able to solve that problem or those problems in ways that maybe heretofore no one's really attempted to address. That's where all the groovy stuff happens. That's where you begin to, there's a lot of buzzwords, right? That's when you begin to upend, or you begin to go into a market and disrupt it. That's a popular word in entrepreneurship circles, but what it really revolves around at its basic tenet is you're solving a problem that either A, no one's ever really solved well or as well as you're solving it, or B, you're just coming at it with a fresh perspective. It's a powerful thing. powerful thing if you can fall in love with the problem and not your solution.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so now we're going to talk about this term value proposition. You heard Gary mention it earlier, right? Value proposition refers to the value a company promises to deliver to a customer should they choose to buy their product, right? Now, when we look at maybe a Walmart versus a Target, they probably have similar services, right? They have similar products within their stores, right? But once again, they have established potential specific value propositions that differentiate themselves from one another. Walmart promises you every day, low prices every day. They never promise you that every aisle and every checkout counter will be open. They did not promise you that. What they promise you is low prices every day, and they have identified a segment that cares about low prices every day and will forego everything else, right? That's their value proposition. So essentially what it means it is what I do and offer that is good enough to make you want to separate from your money, right? That is a simple way of looking at value proposition. However, we're gonna dive into it a little bit different about uniqueness, right? Explain the connection between unique value proposition and sustainable competitive advantage. Boyd, if you could speak to that a little bit.
So as you well know, when I define, for me, unique value proposition, it has a very specific definition. It's how you're solving a particular problem for a particular group of people, and it's how your solution is different from the existing alternatives solutions in the marketplace. It's just really simple. Again, it's how you're solving a problem for a particular group of people, known as our customer segment. And it's how your solution is approaching that problem in a different manner than the existing alternative solutions in the marketplace. Now, the competitive advantage, for me, competitive advantage is nothing more than a channel. It's a way I'm going to get to the customers that someone else just not going to be able to get to them in that way as readily. So in my mind, competitive advantage, unfair advantage, all of those things in my mind is just the way I'm getting to the customer. Because at the end of the day, I still got to solve that problem, and I've got to have a differentiator between the way someone else is doing it. It might be price, which I strongly would discourage that to be the only thing that's unique. It might be the empathy and sympathy that you bring to the table about how the problem is affecting the customer segment. I'm a big fan of that one. When you help people understand that you really care about solving their problems, it's in that space where you develop my favorite tool in entrepreneurship. You develop a band of fanatics, what we call them fans. And when you have a band of fans that for whom you're solving a problem, then things like price don't matter as much. You can ask Apple Computer about that. They are the geniuses on developing fans. You can ask SEC football about that. I've never seen a business that charges people to go around bragging about their being a part of a team upon which they have no stake, no equity, but Alabama, that's us. That's what you want to do in business. Get people to say us and we about some stuff that they're paying you for. And so the way you do that is you've got to develop an empathy and sympathy, a genuine one now, it can't be disingenuous, but a genuine empathy and sympathy about the problem that people are dealing with. That's a powerful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just want to inform, I know there are some that needed to be done by 10:45. We are about 5 to 10 minutes from wrapping up our discussion. So if you do actually have to pull out, completely understand. This also will be available for you via a link to watch later if you want to catch the rest of this discussion. So completely understand if you have to pull out. But as Boyd was saying, definitely and we can look back at that slide here as I say that, it's very important to make sure that you are, even if you're solving problems similarly than what your competitors can be solving, that you're doing it in a way or through a channel that is different in which they're capable of doing it in, right? Otherwise, in this space right here that we call points of parity, if I'm doing it directly in the exact same way that my competitor is doing it, then at the end of the day, I don't have the golden egg. I do not have something that substantially sets me apart in any meaningful way that suggests that you should separate from your money quicker or even at a higher rate when it comes to me as opposed to my competitor, right? So, next question, we want to talk about when it comes to value and how we provide value to people. Gary and I had a conversation, I think it was a couple weeks ago, about the infinite game, not the long game, but the infinite game, right? So
That's right.
This gentleman here, believe it or not, he's been playing this video game ever since he was the same age as the majority of our participants. He's probably been sitting here at his computer since he was the age of 13, 14, and he hasn't moved, not even to eat, right? But Gary, if you'll talk a little bit about the infinite game and what that means.
Well, I mean, the short game is a business that is very focused on their goals. They're very focused on, and goals are important. I think having annual goals is important, but when you're willing to throw away your values and throw away, some of the culture of the business to meet those goals, that's where you get away from playing the infinite game. The infinite game is a business that has a just cause. They have a passion, they have a hunger that compels them to do what they do. And they have a leader who's able to engage their team in the pursuit of whatever that is that they're compelled to do, whatever that vision is that they have, whatever it is that business is focused on. For Chick-fil-A, it's about caring. We want to be the best in the world. We want to be the most caring company in the world, and that compels us to behave differently than somebody whose vision is that they want to increase their stock prices, or they want to drive the more profit this year than they did last year. When that's what drives you, it's hard to get. That's not really a compelling vision that you can build a team around. But also, if you're going to play the infinite game, you've got to have a trusting team. So your team has to feel like they can be transparent. They have to feel like they have a say in what goes on. They have to feel like their opinion counts. And they have to trust the people at the top. And that creates an environment where they are acting in a manner where customers can trust them. And that trust piece in business is understated, and it's incredibly important. As a matter of fact, trust is the foundation of every relationship. So why shouldn't it be foundational in an employer-employee relationship? And why shouldn't it be foundational in a business-to-customer relationship? You've got to have, when we're talking about the value proposition, it's great if you want to set a value proposition, but you better make sure that you're sticking to it. You better make sure you're delivering on what you're promising. And then, it doesn't hurt to have a worthy adversary. Basically the competition. Can I engage my team around beating the competition, because that gets them thinking about how to be more creative, about how to do it better. How can we do it better today than we did it yesterday? We're not operating every day thinking about the competition and trying to and having them in our sights every day, but we better at least have them in the back of our minds, because if you get lazy, you find that you start losing market share. And
That's right.
I'm in business to win, and I'm in business to win by a long margin. And but that's the infinite game. But the infinite game is not about taking shortcuts. It's about doing things right. If you think about a marriage relationship, marriage is an infinite game. You're not playing that to win every battle. You're playing the infinite game to earn the right to play again tomorrow and to play again next year. And you're earning the right every day by the way you conduct yourself, developing trust, developing care and love. You're playing that game for the long haul. And it's the same way that you should conduct yourself in business. When we hire an employee, we like to think about it as courting them. We're courting that employee. We're going to interview them over and over and over again. We're going to have multiple people interview them, because we want to make sure that this is a good selection and that this is somebody who fits in with us, who believes in what we believe in. And we feel like that is the infinite way to do it. The short game is to hire somebody who's willing to put up with how bad we are as employers, and who's willing to come in and work for minimum wage. That's the short game thinking. The long game is, I'm going to pay you what you're worth, and I'm going to, and maybe on the high end of the market, but I'm going to pay you because I want to keep you. And I want to make sure that you're here. Because I'm going to invest in you. And as I invest in you, I want to keep you around, because you're walking around with a library. When you've been with me a year, you've got an entire library of knowledge that I want to make sure that I don't see walk out the door. And there are other pieces of that long game that I could talk about. I could talk about this subject for a long time, and I realize we're limited on time. So just understand that when you're in business, you need to be playing for the long haul, and not to just survive, not to try to turn a profit on every transaction. Even if you messed up, well, we're going to burn you, because we don't want to take a loss on this particular transaction. That's not long game thinking. Long game thinking is, I'm going to take care of you, and I'm sorry that happened.
I think, I think business is more about farming than it is hunting. Too many people approach business and business methods like they're on the hunt. I got to get to sell. Whereas when you farm, you realize there's so many variables out of your control. You put the seed in the soil and you can water that bad boy, but you can't make it germinate. You can just work that environment where germination happens. You work that environment, hope that other things show up, like bees and ladybugs that's going to help pollinate. So you try to, keep the floral going, right? To draw them in. And then you're prayerful of some rain from time to time, because that water is a little different from the water that comes out of the hydrant, right? And you talked about earlier, Mr. Jackson, safety or security. This is where entrepreneurs, we have to become comfortable with that. There's some things we can't control, and it's all right, okay? Which we know after a while, that's the reality of everybody's life. People were just lulled into being delusional that they got a job that's safe until the pink slip is sitting on their desk when they show up and why are you firing me, right? Well, things were bad. And so it's in this space where I'm a big fan of, and I guess because of my industry, I'm a big fan of the frenemy game, right? So people that you're competing with on this one thing, but you're partnering with on this other thing. And I love that, because what it does, and I love what Mr. Gary said, it makes you get your rump up every morning to say, okay, I shared this with them yesterday. What are they going to do with it? All right, so I need to go and make sure my food is as sharp as it can be. And it's just a great environment to grow, right? It's a great environment to face your fears. That's one of the things I most love about entrepreneurship. it helps you deal with you. You start saying, I'm scared to death. I don't know how this is going to I don't know how it's going to work out. And you if you allow the process, you get comfortable being vulnerable, telling folk that you messed up. I'm sorry. I'm ignorant. I don't know what I'm doing right now. And it's just a beautiful thing in human growth if you allow the process. So it's good stuff. But it's about farming, definitely not about the hunt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you, Boyd. It's about farming, and it's about farming. It's about doing things right every day, consistently farming in the right manner, and knowing that if I keep doing this long enough and I keep doing it well, eventually that crop is going to come in. And also taking feedback, because a lot of times that feedback is what's going to help you make the adjustments you need to make. Dick Cavett has a great quote, and it's one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know why, but I think it just spoke to me as a young businessman many, many years ago. But he says, it's a rare man who wants to hear what he doesn't want to hear.
That's right.
And
That's
basically, you have to be vulnerable enough to have a customer tell you that you're horrible, and why you're horrible, right? And why you're horrible.
That's right.
Why you're the worst that's ever been in business.
That's right.
Be vulnerable enough to stand there and even ask questions. What can we do better? How can we earn your trust again? What is it where did we drop the ball? Because you want to know what it is that customer feels about you. And it's a rare thing to find, is somebody who wants to hear what they don't want to hear.
I would add one thing quickly. So the common sentiment in the world is people don't mind criticism as long as it's constructive. And I'm a little different. I'm like, even if it's not meant to be constructive, I think on any team you build, you need the naysayer, the person who's always complaining, always talking about how it's not working, because you've got to have that perspective in your mind that make you ask, does this stuff, is it lousy? Do we not need to do this? And that check and balance is invaluable in entrepreneurship, invaluable.
Yeah, and it's invaluable in school too. I think that the teachers that grind on you the hardest are probably the ones that care about you the most. They're the ones who are trying to make you better. And you got to go in that classroom every day with that feeling like, how am I going to get better? How can I get better? And when you got to helping you get better, they are a gift from God. They're there to mentor you and help you, and you listen. They may tell you things you don't want to hear, but and same with an employer. When an employer is coaching you and he's coaching you hard, you ought to be thinking, man, I'm so glad I got this guy in my life, because he is going to push me to be what I can become.
Absolutely. And I want to reiterate for all of the educators and myself that's on the phone, on the webinar right now, as what Gary said, the teacher that is going to ride you the hardest and push you the hardest is the one that cares about you the most. All right. Even when it doesn't feel like it. All right. All right. So as we close, there are a couple other things I just want to briefly just talk about. And we talked about how family in every aspect of you matters and what you do. Right. What you want to just share a little bit about legacy family and the role that it plays in entrepreneurship.
It's funny you asked me that, because as we were talking about criticism and critics, this is exactly what popped into my mind. My wife loves me down in her toenails, but when her husband starts going left, she is the first to come off the top rope and go, what do you think you're doing? You need to rethink this thing, right? And it gets into this space of the scriptural reference. The Lord, those whom the Lord loves, he chastens. And then you tie that to another passage. No chastisement is joyous for the present. It doesn't feel good when my wife is telling me these things. I mean, I'm not feeling good at all about it, but because I know she loves and she cares for me, I'm listening, right? And so it's in this space where it's important to have family and friends around you who aren't always humoring you, who aren't always saying, well, that's a great idea. No, you want some folk around you to go, hey, you know it's a ditch down there, right? You keep going down that street at that particular speed, you're going to have a wreck. And especially when you don't want to hear it. I think it's just, it's a necessity for an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, absolutely. And same for you, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, the legacy to me is, you know, when you get to be to where you have family and you're married and you've got kids and grandkids and all that, is, you know, what kind of a fingerprint, what kind of a impact did you have on their lives that carries on long after you're gone? And then also when you're building a business, what kind of an impact are you having on that team and on your community that extends beyond your lifetime? And that, you know, it's just an important part about business. I know folks want to think that entrepreneurship has a lot to do about money. It really has more to do with fulfillment and more to do with your passion for developing others and leaving an impact on their lives. I think that when you get into entrepreneurship for that reason, you have, and there are people who their main motivation is money that do really, really well. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, are they really happy? Are they really fulfilled? Do they put their head on the bed at night and think, man, what a great day. It was so great to see this young person who 6 months ago was nervous and scared and didn't know how to do anything. And now you can just see them blooming and blossoming and growing. And that's what gets me charged up.
And Gary, I've been around the mortuarial sciences all my life. I have never seen a hearse with a U-Haul tied to it. So there's some stuff you're going to leave here. All right. But relationships, building people, helping people, man, that stuff is eternal. It is. It's eternal.
Yeah. That's where the thrill comes in. That's where you go, man, I am in my sweet spot. You know, that as you guys are selecting your career, try to find a place where what you're good at intersects with what you're passionate about. I'm passionate about basketball. No way I'm gonna make a living at it. Okay. You know, I'm passionate about it. I love it. Basketball needs to be a hobby for me. Okay. But when you can find that sweet spot where what you're passionate about matches what you're skilled at, that's when you know that you're on the right path. And I'll just leave you with that little bit of wisdom. I don't know why I thought of that, but something Boyd said just made me think about it. That's a Marcus Buckingham wrote a book called Strengths Finders, that as you start thinking about what it is that you want to do in your life, that is a great book to pick up and read.
Absolutely. And at this time, we do have one question here in the Q&A. Was asked, it says, I don't think we talked about this today, but in class, we have talked about an entrepreneurial mindset when you enter the workforce. Can we expand a little bit on that further? Are we saying that we should enter the workforce with a mindset of solving problems that lies within the company? And I'll let either of you all speak to that also, but it does remind me something of you shared also, Gary, with me a while ago about hiring employees that have a desire to solve problems and be entrepreneurial and be part of the team from a problem solving perspective, right? I think one of the things you shared also is that they have a desire to serve, and at the moment that they feel that it's all about them and that they want to be served, that you all have a way that they could be promoted to customer, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. I had a young lady who was washing dishes, and this is in my first restaurant, my mall unit in Auburn, and another young lady who was breading chicken, and the one that's breading chicken starts saying, you know, breading chicken. Every time I work, they make me bread chicken. I don't know why I always have to bread chicken. And the girl washing dishes said, well, I don't mind breading chicken. I'll swap with you. You can come over here and wash dishes. She said, no, I don't like washing dishes either. And it just made me think, because my office was upstairs and there was no wall there, so I could hear everything that was going on down there. And it just made me think, you know, who's going to get more out of life? The young girl who's willing to do anything that she's asked to do, or the young lady who's not happy no matter what you ask her to do. And so when you talk about becoming an entrepreneur at work, what you're really talking about is walking into that job, whether it doesn't have to be your job. I mean, it doesn't have to be your business, but walking in, understanding that you are in charge of your own career, that you determine the outcomes. And a lot of those outcomes are going to be based on what kind of attitude you have. If you've got a positive attitude, you're easy to work with, you're solving problems rather than bringing problems to somebody else, then you're worth your weight in gold to that employer. But if you're the type of person that's coming in and doing the minimum, I was told early in my career, do the jobs that nobody else wants to do. Because if you form a habit of doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do, you're gonna get a reputation of being somebody that the boss can count on. And when you get that reputation, it's not very long before you're the boss. So I would just suggest to you guys that when you have a job, walk into it with the attitude that I want to learn, I want to grow, and I want to give this place everything I've got. And that's just the way to do it. Don't worry about what you're getting, worry about what you're giving.
Boy, it looks like you're talking, but we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. It spills over into what might also turn out to be entrepreneurship opportunities. So my last corporate job, one of the things I was over was corporate printing for a pretty large mortgage company in 11 states. And they had a contractor who wanted to install these big band printers on the company's network. They got approval and they didn't know how to do it. And so they asked if the IT department would come over. Well, IT said, that's not in our jurisdiction. You know, this is your stuff. And so then they gave me a personal invitation, extended, and said, hey, could you come help us? And all of the other guys in IT were like, man, you don't go help them. They need to handle it themselves. You need to charge them, all of this stuff, right? So I'm like, well, dude, I don't have anything else to do right now. Let me just go over and help the people. So I go over, help them get the printers on. Everything's lovely. Probably 6 months later, I start seriously thinking about leaving the business. And some of the guys who were working for this contractor heard about it. And they passed the word on to the owner of the business. And the owner told them to tell me if I ever leave the company to give him a call because he wanted to sign up his business as one of our customers. I'll let you guess who was the first person I called when I transitioned out of that corporate entity. All because while working there, working to help people. It's just the most powerful tool in the arsenal. Do the work, help people, look for opportunities to help people when you're in the corporate structure. It's amazing the things that the fruit that's born from that type of activity.
Awesome. Appreciate you all giving that timeless advice. Matter of fact, this is my first invention as an entrepreneur. It's actual time machine. It just never worked. Okay. All right. So at this point, we do have a moment for Q&A. If there's anyone that just have a comment or anything that they'll like to share, I can make your mic live so that you can actually share or comment, feel free to raise your hand and we will do that at this time. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any hands that are actually raising. I'm assuming that we have answered all questions that have come up in the chat, which we have, and also in the Q&A. At this time, I would love to just thank you all for once again giving us your time today in this webinar, and being able to just share with you and your students and the classes. Thank you, Dr. Starks. I see your comment here. Dr. Starks is the principal at BTW, Magnet High School here in Montgomery. We once again appreciate you and your students joining us this morning. Also, Mrs. Avi at Otago County Technology Center. We also appreciate you and thank you also for your kind comments and words there. Once again, we thank you all. For those who are still with us, if you would like, would love for you to go to pollev.com/AUMbusiness873 to complete feedback. You know, feedback is definitely important for us to be able to understand what you took away from this, but also what you would like to see in future webinars as well. I see Gary's comment here, our pleasure, eat more chicken, right? Definitely will do my part as we frequently do in my household also. And I also just want to take this time also again on behalf of the College of Business to thank our panelists, Gary and also Boyd, for the words, the wisdom, and the time that you have shared here with us this morning. Cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much. And if there is nothing else, we would like to dismiss and say thank you. So you all have a great day. Eat more chicken. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
All right.
God bless.
Take care.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.